I'm a man who believed that I died 20 years ago, and I live like a man who is dead already. I have no fear whatsoever of anybody or anything.
Gary Webb. I am an investigative journalist, and in 1996 I wrote a series of stories entitled Dark Alliance, which was about CIA involvement in drug trafficking.
I knew a man who once said death smiles at us all. All a man can do is smile back.
We've both been skull and bone, the secret society.
It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America? The conspiracy theorists are going to go on.
I'm sure they are. I don't know. I haven't seen the rest.
Number 322.
I sad duty to report this afternoon that my friend and colleague, Tim Russert, collapsed and died early this afternoon.
I may die in this cell tonight or in the arena tomorrow. I am a slave. What possible difference can I make?
And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know.
Welcome back to your favorite live call-in conspiracy or parapolitical show, depending on what sort of flavor you want to add on to that. As I said, this is a call-in show, so we will have the phone lines hopefully up and running here soon, ready to get into it again with Austin Picard, our ever-present co-host, and myself, Jose Galison, digging deep into the world. The world of schizophrenia. What the fuck is going on? We have Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham dead. The world's coming together to honor his memory. Finally fulfilled in his final moments. Did you see that video? That video of him when he that recently just came out of when the literal. I guess you had a documentary filmmaker following him the moment when the Iran war first strike started.
Yeah,
it was great. It was kind of weird it's almost beautiful in a weird way, because it's he literally did die fulfilled. He had his moment before and then shortly after gone.
For Lindsey Graham, the warmonger. Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, I feel like we should probably pivot to the Lindsey Graham funeral and really how it segues into the foreign policy in the current moment, right, and how it's affecting us all, and especially, I shouldn't prioritize the gas industry, but clearly we have an issue with the oil industry, and it's definitely a consequence of the current conflict.
Before we dig too much in that, Austin, though, I do want to be a little bit grifty and remind people that you did just recently go on Jake Shields' show. We did want to talk a little bit about the topic that you guys just talked about, Son of Sam. That's what you guys talked over 2 hours about in the recent episode that dropped. I think there's still more coming. And so there was a little bit more you wanted to dig into. I figured as a little bit of a promo for that episode, we could, I think you had a teaser of some MK Ultra or / military sort of connections here. And obviously, don't go into too much, Austin. Obviously, we're going to get into it plenty, I'm sure, just now. But just to remind everybody, you guys still have 2+ hours of whatever we're about to unleash just now over with Jake Shields over in his channel with the Fight Back podcast. So that just dropped recently. So awesome. What exactly were you wanting to tell me about? I guess it was something I think you felt like you maybe left out a little bit, or something maybe didn't quite get to like you wanted to. So. I guess so. You're not missing anything. You're getting something new that you won't get out of the podcast that you're definitely gonna go check out as soon as Austin drops his knowledge on you.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I encourage all of you to go check out the content that has already been published on the Fight Back podcast that we were able to record whenever I was in Vegas just recently. And I will say, just in general, as I mentioned, kind of instantly as a reaction after the trip, just how grateful I am and what an honor it was to have that opportunity once again to just pick up and throw all my stuff in the car and just drive out to Vegas and have a discussion that I feel like is actually important, that means something, that will hopefully stand the test of time in terms of like introducing people to these alternative theories, but also these credible concepts that very much will provide them with this at the very least, this formidable foundation that they can rely on moving forward within the context of just the mind war that we discuss so very often, and the deliberate deception of the mind manipulators that have sophisticated these methods for generations at this point. And so it's, for me, I think, honestly, more than anything, I think what the most appealing subject matter to me is mind control, because of how fraught and oversaturating these technical abilities that they have sophisticated, and also just this sort of almost surface level deceptive tactics that they exploit and leverage to their benefit, just in terms of propaganda and things of that nature, which just we're inundated on a daily basis. We all know our phones are listening to us. I mean, at this point, I feel like it's legitimately reading my mind, and I think there's actual evidence to essentially at least provide us with the implication that this is a technical capability of the intelligence apparatus at this point. And beyond that, of these private companies that are utilizing the system software that was created by DARPA, let's just say, and so it's like you have this sophisticated software that is also having an effect on us that we might not be aware of, and that's this subconscious underlying effect that is constantly there's definitely something that isn't quite tangible in regard to, again, just the concept of, remotely triggering a Manchurian candidate to some extent, right? It's like that in the lowest level, right? The most surface level form of that is just triggering the subconscious propaganda that has taken root in your mind's eye, and really causing you to be unable in the moment when it matters most, right? To not be triggered into that over emotional reactionary state of mind, to where you embrace a bad idea or a false framework, so to speak, to really cause you to be incapable of having a discussion with an open mind, right? Especially in an objective way. And so I just have to say, being able to have those discussions on any time that we are given the opportunity to go on platforms that are large enough to reach a larger audience that obviously is untapped in terms of those conceptual ideas and those very viable concepts being illustrated and described in a way that is palatable and convincing. And I think that's another thing, and something that I'm overly obsessed with. It's like I struggle not overly criticizing myself every time I ever have a conversation, because I feel like I left so much on the table. And so it's like this inevitable kind of self-defeating cycle in a way, when in reality, at the very least, you should remind yourself that you're presenting information that most people have not yet been introduced to. And so if you can at the very least navigate those waters in a credible, convincing way, you did something worthwhile. And so I hope I at the very least achieved that. And beyond that, I kind of appreciate having conversations with friends that are very open-minded and are eager to learn more about these ideas as well. And as we kind of have discussed personally, when we met Jake the first time, it's almost like he approaches these concepts and really just this industry of content creation in a similar way that he approached his fighting career, and I admire the hell out of that. It's inspiring, honestly, to see, just someone who has such a work ethic that is, again, just inspiring and formidable to witness personally. And so, yeah, it's been nothing but an honor and a blessing to just cultivate these friendships, especially, you know, from day one, as I've said on this show for how many times, you know, just it's honestly, I couldn't be more grateful to be able to just like pick up the phone and give you a call if I need to talk to you. And we're legitimately brothers, you know, and it's like, that's a different thing than, yes, we're all working towards something in terms of, you know, improving in this sort of, at the very least, in this kind of framework of content creation, right? Personally trying to improve in that way, but also just intellectually growing together and doing it in a way where we only hope to benefit each other. And it's that law of abundance, brother. And it's a beautiful mindset. And so I just wanted to, at the very least, remind everyone how important that is, to kind of try and maintain that attitude of gratitude as much as possible. I'm trying to remind myself. I'm not lecturing you, I promise. But
oh, definitely. Yeah.
Right.
No, it always feels surreal when you do something like that. It was definitely surreal hanging out with him. I mean, I remember I was a huge GSP fan, and so way back in the day when I was really into MMA, so seeing Jake, you know, and hanging out with him is quite wild. For anyone who knows the history, he pretty much was basically the only guy who really gave GSP in his heyday, like at the top of his absolute game, like an actual like run for his money. I forget the fight. It was a hell of a fight. I forget the specifics on it. I think it was a close. Didn't it go to like the distance and it was like close or something like that?
Yeah,
I forget.
It was a war, dude. And
it's wild. So
yeah.
He's a fucking warrior.
Yeah.
And you could tell he's a joyful warrior because he clearly. I mean, obviously, I don't know him well enough to know like how he approaches martial arts, but obviously, you know, talking to him, hanging out with him intellectually, you can tell he's a probably likely approach that in the same way. Is this joyous way, trying to learn things, trying to just grow in different ways. Same idea. He's just in an intellectual way, just being like, whoa, holy shit, this, completely throwing any sort of concerns about respectability to this wayside. As well you should. Just, I'm searching for information, fuck all that gay shit. Exactly. And so it's great to have a platform for something like that. I know there definitely are a lot of people who have their issues with Jake, and I totally get it. But that's kind of what it comes with it when you have somebody who is kind of the bro dude who is like, just got to a point in his life where like where I can afford to just go down every rabbit hole I want, and you guys are gonna have to fucking deal with it.
And he's honestly one of the most genuine people that I've ever met as well. And so I think it was so interesting and kind of fascinating to witness when the first time he called to kind of discuss what we would talk about, whatever subject we were going to prioritize, you know, whenever I came out. It basically he's I kind of went schizophrenic as hell, right? I just had a schizo dump on Jake, right? And we talked for almost 2 hours, and I'm just honestly, it was mainly probably because this was my solo project and still is my solo project that I've been working on and has been on the shelf, and I've just been like slowly accumulating more information over the course of time in regard to the Odyssey Foundation and John Wayne Gacy.
Becoming a docu-series.
Dude, I'm getting scared, to be honest, but I'll have to definitely limit my scope far more than I am at the current moment. But it's also trying to overwhelm I don't want to entirely overwhelm myself, but I think you have to overexpose yourself to such a degree whenever you dive down these proverbial rabbit holes. The evidentiary case connections that are so important in terms of the details and understanding and providing yourself with that overall, at the very least, more of a sense of self-confidence in terms of the overall scope of the case in general, right? And how you can come to any sort of conclusion in a real way. It's like you definitely have to overexpose yourself to those things. And so I think it was mainly all of that was just percolating and bouncing around in my mind for so long.
There's too many connections too, and you're trying to dump all this into Jake's head. There's just way too many connections and all this stuff, you know?
I know, and it's in the course of an hour and a half on the phone just introducing him to this. And so I didn't even expect to do this, if I'm being honest. And it just sort of happened. And so I start talking about John David Norman, the Odyssey Foundation, how these serial killers are technically connected through, right, this not only PDM contractors, but I was explaining to him how Odyssey turned into Delta when it moved to Chicago geographically, and all of these things. And so then he instantly goes from that conversation to, okay, I'll get back. And then he's texting me at 2 a.m., right? That very same day or very same night. And he still was up all night basically researching John David Norman, all the connections that I was illustrating to him over the course of the phone call. And it reinforced everything that I had to say, right? And so he comes back to me like, holy shit, it's starting to take root in his mind a little bit and take form in terms of understanding exactly the overall scope of this network in a sort of way, at the very least, the introductory point to begin to understand it. And especially through the scope of John David Norman. And it was just hilarious to kind of see how much he was eager to continue to learn about this, and especially how many people are unaware. I think that's the other part, and what was so extraordinary to him personally is the level of which people are so unaware of these things and these various connections, especially to this class of serial killers that erupted at this specific point in time in the course of American history. And anyway, I didn't mean to get off on this tangent, but the point is just life is good. But I think at the very least, I can kind of speak for the both of us in terms of we're extraordinarily blessed, and to be able to have these conversations on a weekly basis and continue to learn and actually pursue something that feels as if it's a valuable use of our time. Like that in itself is a victory in life. And do you know how many people just spend their daily lives, the more of their time is spent at a 9 to 5 or whatever the case may be, right? At some just soul crushing experience that is not at all, at the very least, kind of, it's not providing you with that purpose that I think is fundamentally necessary to have, just not have that sort of, I think it becomes an identity crisis. And this is how it really comes to fruition and surfaces in so many people. But anyway, I'll get into the David Berkowitz mind control thing because
David Berkowitz and his mind control, and how he's connected to the military.
But I will say that there was one thing I wanted to tell you before the Berkowitz connection, and I mentioned it to you, but I can't pull the article for the life of me because it's a Newsweek article, and I promise I will never speak about the Odyssey ever again after this. And it only comes in the form.
Oh no. What are we doing?
What's so funny is I've been like, honestly, it doesn't even really make sense why I'm so, I've been obsessively focused on prioritizing the pop culture concept of what the Odyssey is, represents in my opinion. But it was hilarious because I went on NDS yesterday, and for some reason that I cannot explain, because it was not at all the goal, I was going to present the Christopher Nolan Odyssey tangent as a way to kind of transition into John David Norman's Odyssey Foundation, have that conversation, promote the recent interview I did with Jake. And that never happened. It was just me hijacking the show to talk about the Odyssey and basically these pop culture reference points and cultural touchstones that we've been discussing in the recent past. But I will say that throughout this ridiculous process of kind of being overly obsessed with this subject, I rediscovered this connection that I realized years ago I had actually stumbled across. And it was this ridiculous claim about, and this, it was basically about Christopher Nolan's older brother. He has two brothers, right? So, and as the story goes, right, this dates back to like 2005, and essentially you have these charges that would result in basically a conviction, not for Matthew, not for the brother Matthew Nolan, but there's a conviction in 2009 for the actual murder that did take place in Costa Rica. So here's the point: is that Christopher Nolan might have a brother that is a potential hitman and murdered a Jewish banker in Costa Rica. And it's even stranger than that, because it turns out that there's a code name that Christopher Nolan's brother would actually utilize during the time in which he was a contract killer or an alleged hitman. But again, Christopher Nolan and Jonathan Nolan is the other brother, I believe. They've never basically had a public, they've never spoken publicly about their older brother, Matthew, which is very strange in itself. At least at the time of this article from Newsweek in 2023, that had been the case, right? So basically what you come to find, and this is according to these court records from especially this Costa Rica murder case, right, where the Costa Rican government unsuccessfully applies for Matthew Nolan to be extradited from the United States in 2009, right? And this is in the records that basically proves that they made a number of claims about the situation in regard to this murder case and the circumstances surrounding specifically the death of this Jewish banker. So let me pull this up on my phone, because as I said, whenever I attempt to pull it on my computer, my browser is overwhelmed. And for some strange reason, I have major issues with my connection. So I want to make sure I get the actual name of the murdered victim, right? The Jewish banker. I want to actually make sure that I get that name correct. But the main point is that clearly the first thing that it implies in my mind, just pure speculation, but fascinating to say the least, is that basically you can imagine a world where none of these prominent personalities in the Hollywood industrial complex rise to prominence by accident, right? It would seem that there's some sort of hidden genealogical component or factor involved in regard to how they kind of even have the opportunity or the avenues of opportunity available to them. I find that to be basically just commonplace. It's the status quo, right? In regard to how Hollywood functions. Robert Cohen is the name, right? Robert Cohen is the name of the actual banker in Costa Rica, the accountant who was found murdered, right? And Matthew Nolan was arrested and charged with the murder of this accountant, Robert Cohen, in Costa Rica in 2009. He was actually arrested and allegedly charged with this, right? So this is so crazy, man. You can, again, I didn't expect any of this. Whenever, I probed a little bit deeper below the surface. So it turns out there's another man, Luis Alonso Douglas Mejia, right? Was initially convicted of the murder in 2005. But the extradition court documents point to Matthew Nolan's involvement as a hired contract killer. So Costa Rica contends that Mejia contacted the accused, Matthew Nolan, and for a still undetermined amount of money, hired his services, both of them planning the manner in which they would deprive the victim of his freedom in order to later murder him. This is according to the court documents. So this is crazy, because basically Costa Rica didn't submit the proper evidence that was convincing enough to allow for the corroboration of the assertion made for the extradition to be approved. That's what was alleged, right? In regard to, there's no real expressed motivation or motive for the murder as well that has been illustrated to any extent. Maybe in the court documents in regard to Mejia, it would potentially describe why he would have potentially hired Matthew Nolan to carry out and facilitate the contract killing. But either way, in the court documents, there is evidence that Matthew Nolan used the alias, right? And which is fascinating, again, that there's even testimony as well that he's using this code name, and basically the code name had nothing to do with J. Robert Oppenheimer, but unfortunately Matthew Nolan was using an alias or a code name while he was engaging in contract killings that was Matthew McCall Oppenheimer, right? This was the alias that he was using. He would basically, even in email records, he is referring to himself as M.M. McCall Oppenheimer. So then you have an article from the Times in 2010, and basically they were sort of discussing the reason in which the brother Matthew Nolan allegedly chose the name Oppenheimer for the code name, and allegedly the purpose was to connect himself and link himself to the Oppenheimer diamond family, this wealthy family called the Oppenheimer diamond family. And this is basically a family that is related to the South African diamond dealers, right? And so had nothing to do with J. Robert Oppenheimer, the scientist that obviously was involved in the creation of the nuclear bomb. But anyway, the essentially Matthew Nolan was never convicted of being a hitman or even being involved in this murder, but he was in 2009, 4 years after the death of the individual. Again, last name Cohen, first name Robert. It turns out that basically 4 years after the fact, in 2009, after the death of Cohen, there was a bankruptcy. Matthew Nolan had fired for bankruptcy in Chicago, right? And he was arrested by an FBI agent named Pablo Araya that very same year, and was formally charged with Robert Cohen's murder by Costa Rican authorities. So this is all. So a judge in the U.S. never he went on the record claiming. I would like to find out who this judge is. Honestly, I need to just do a little bit more of a further dig, a deeper dig into this. But I will say that this judge in the U.S. didn't see the sufficient evidence to extradite him, right? So this basically led to Costa Rica abandoning the extradition request in 2010. But at the time, he was being held in the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Chicago, and Matthew Nolan even went so far as to attempt an escape and was even sentenced for 14 months in jail as a result. But after serving this sentence, he was released. So ever since then, there's nothing documented on Matthew Nolan. But fascinating, right? And
yeah.
Once
I was waiting for a connection to Berkowitz. Am I losing my mind, or was there more that you were trying to go into with Berkowitz, the military
not.
MK Ultra
Yeah.
connection?
No,
okay, all right.
yeah,
so I'm like sitting here waiting. I'm like, when is Berkowitz MK Ultra?
I just had to tell you.
I was like, I was ready to be blown the fuck away. Like, you're connecting these two, but go ahead. All right.
No, I'm not connecting Berkowitz to any of this, but I am just at least providing the extraordinary connection to the fact that Christopher Nolan has an older brother named Matthew that was a potential hitman going under the code name Oppenheimer that murdered a Jewish banker in Costa Rica.
So he likely tried to impersonate a Jewish. That's my guess. I would just assume with the name Oppenheimer. I would assume a Jewish South African apartheid diamond owner. So I don't know what the end game was there, but it sounds like he was trying to pull some sort of con, and then he also killed some other Jew. So it sounds like some other weird game of espionage or some sort of tricks were afoot that I don't know exactly what the idea there was, but something weird, something a fucky was going on. Like, that's for sure.
Some sort of targeted assassination of some kind that might have mob ties, mob connections. This is how the networks typically function. It's the same thing when we had the conversation about Gacy here in a moment. There are potential mob connections to Gacy where he was basically saying he was a hitman for the mob. That's what he was telling some of the victims. Some of the victims that even, survived, right? And were just around Gacy during the time. We'll get into that as well, but I thought the Berkowitz mind control connection I mentioned, and I did actually describe that, I believe, in the episode with Jake. So definitely tune in and witness that for yourself, and maybe even follow that through, because at the very least, just go and read Maury Terry's book. Basically, is what you need to do. Honestly, if you want to understand in regard to Berkowitz's time in the army, right, and during his time in the military, it was strange because I think so. He joined the military, I believe, in '71, right, and then he's stationed in Korea, And this is before he's only in the service for around the 3 years, right? The 3 to 4 years before he's discharged in 74, right? And I believe he even received an honorable discharge. But while he's serving in the Army, he basically was known to have used LSD, right? And so this is problematic in terms of Sam changed after the LSD trips, which was a New York Daily News article published in 1977 in the month of August, right? And it turns out that basically this is following David Berkowitz being arrested, right? And you have this article being ran, and basically the headline read, "Sam changed after LSD trips," and it details how he basically had this devastating personality transformation, right, that occurred while he was taking these psychedelic drugs in pharmacological mind control agents, in my opinion, in Korea during his time in the Army. So New York Daily News basically claimed that in the context of this article, Son of Sam's personality change was documented in letters to friends, right? So then you have the Salt Lake Tribune, where it's basically publishing the context of essentially an Army friend, right, who's offering his perspective on the time that Berkowitz was in the Army, especially when he was stationed in Korea. And basically, an Army buddy said that Berkowitz adopted the Son of Sam nickname to signify his belief that he was actually a pawn of the state, a pawn of the government, to symbolize Uncle Sam, right? And I found that to be interesting, just because I think there's more to this, and I even addressed it in much more detail, providing additional, let's just say, possibilities of what the name, right? Actually, Sam Carr obviously is a big thing, and I think it's very important that people don't kind of take this one specific explanation for why he would have. Obviously, this is an Army buddy. We don't know exactly the credibility in regard to Terry Peterson. I think he was like 24 at the time, and he was from Wisconsin. And he said in this interview, right, to I believe he talks about how he was best buddies at the time with Berkowitz when they spent a year together in Korea. Which that in itself, I mean, sure, I guess you can imagine while you're stationed, you strike up a friendship and you become best friends over that year. But like to even describe yourself as like you were best buddies when they spent that year together, I don't know. Maybe that's commonplace. But he claimed that Berkowitz would complain to him about, and just in general, he wouldn't just complain directly to him, but he would complain in general about what the Army was doing to him. And basically, the buddy claims he took a lot of static after he basically he filed conscientious objector forms, right? And so after that, his buddy claims to have told him that, well, you signed up and now you're just a son of Sam. And so he acts like he basically provided David Berkowitz with that concept. And then he goes into claiming what I meant was that he was a soldier for Uncle Sam and he was obligated to serve his country. But he took that to mean that he had become a pawn, a tool in some big game that the establishment was making him play. I'm certain that's where the name Son of Sam came from. We used to call each other that all the time. This is what basically this Terry Peterson went on the record claiming. And this is during, I believe it was August of 1977. So then you have this strange connection to basically Berkowitz becoming a part of this special project for profiled candidates, during which he was dosed with LSD and various other pharmacological agents and pharmaceutical drugs. And so Terry Peterson, the Army buddy of Berkowitz, stated that when Berkowitz said he was the son of Sam, he was trying to say he was the son of Uncle Sam, yes, a creation of certain elements in the U.S. government, but David Berkowitz, basically, this is all during the time where he entered this special program for profiled candidates where these drugs were being administered. So I personally thought this could be clearly, and I don't think this might not even be the introductory point to these sort of mind control techniques, right? That Berkowitz was clearly, I think he was profiled long before he entered the special program. Otherwise, he probably wouldn't have even been stationed in Korea at the time. Who knows? But I would like to, because I've seen people make additional claims to basically his childhood as well, and obviously many of these cases, they stem back to this childhood trauma that helps fracture the mind into the dissociative identity disorder state, where they become a fundamental kind of asset, and also are basically primed and ready for this potential, clearly it's a deliberate use. They were basically designed for this deliberate use later on in their lives, and so they will follow this sophisticated path. The path of a programmed asset, right, is essentially what you see. So anyway, that's really the extent of what I kind of wanted to just reiterate and reinforce, and because I had mentioned the fact that it's possible, and I think there's even much more evidence to illustrate and imply that potentially mind control was on the table in regard to David Berkowitz being an actual mind control asset, that they could easily strategically position. And that was kind of the point I wanted to make.
If we're going to take the time to talk about the military and mind control, we have plenty to talk about the big trick they've pulled over there. I do want to give a little bit of a reminder, or I guess housekeeping, let you guys know. You guys can call in. Phone lines are open, 1-833-722-3323, 1-833-722-DEAD. But yeah, we have Zelensky, we have Netanyahu coming back in for another hangout. Last time he was here was less than 2 weeks before we started up the Iran war again. So it seems significant. Anytime BB rolls through, seems like something new's happening. But just I feel like we have these. I believe it's either today or I think it was today. Actually, I think it was the funeral of Lindsey Graham. So there was all sorts of foreign dignitaries attending in honor. They're passing, I believe it's some sort of sanctions bill on Russia. Trump was already talking about also making a joint bill, including Iran, although we're not sure if that's going to end up being what's voted on or not. But either way, a merging of these two, it seems like there's an attempt. But yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts? I just think we're in a unique moment right now, and it's kind of it's weirdly being focused around Lindsey Graham's death. It seems like I just feel like this is a good moment to just kind of take a step, look back at where we are now and where we've been. I recall essentially the Trump administration coming in, or on the campaign trail, kind of the way they were talking about the Russia-Ukraine thing. Most everyone was kind of like, well, we got that Gaza thing. Yeah, we know he's probably not going to do anything about that. But hey, he'll stop the whole Russia-Ukraine thing. And lo and behold, he did not stop that. He actually started a whole other thing with the Iran war thing. Didn't do a goddamn thing about the Gaza thing. And then the whole Russia-Ukraine thing's kind of been slowly trickling up into a worse and worse thing. And now it's looking like it may even merge with the Iran war. There was Ukraine was sending missiles, was attacking Iranian tankers seemingly on our behalf recently, which is obviously very concerning if these two wars manage to merge. There also seems to be a signaling, to me at least, that MAGA is pivoting, because when they came in, the move was, hey, we don't like this death. We're going to do something about this. What was it like? He said he was going to be like 24, 40 hours, something crazy. First week, whatever, he's going to fix it. Obviously, he didn't. But then it kind of came like this, like, oh, it's on life support. They just won't stop fighting. It was kind of like neutral. It was kind of like, we want to make this peace, but, whatever's finding a million different reasons. But now we have Laura Loomer just interviewed Zelensky. And I mean, between that and a number of other things, I know it seems silly to point Laura Loomer as a weather vane, but so far as how the Trump administration behaves, she kind of is. And so it is a little bit concerning that we're seeing what seems to be more of a pivot, leaning straight on into it now. So I don't know, between that and then also you add in the Central America, South America thing, we just had a report that came out that showed apparently those murders in the high seas have made no difference whatsoever to the cocaine coming into the United States.
Yeah.
Actually, they've seemingly made the smugglers more crafty, is what they've actually done. Made that so they've developed better practices that make them harder to track down. So, way to go. So, I don't know. What are your thoughts on all this, Austin? It just seems like a unique moment. It's just kind of like the neocons won. It's just like you guys fell for it.
Yeah, honestly. I mean, really, what's fascinating is that you have, and obviously I pulled up this clip of Laura Loomer, right? Because I think it's the perfect window into the current moments of just the military industrial complex and the current regime in power, and really also how the pendulum only swings into a further dystopian direction, no matter which partisan political power is in office, right? It's honestly understanding that the military interests of the U.S. empire never change. It's like this is something that I think people should be more than aware of at this point, and stop trying to vote their way out of this, because it inevitably comes to fruition in terms of the ultimate interests of the military industrial complex. And so you wonder why they were so willingly able to vote in the NDAA merger, right? And to see basically, as far as there's really no one even batting an eye in terms of the ultimate consequences of that merger, and we discussed it when it was first basically announced, right? That this was on the table, and then I think we even played a clip last week of Netanyahu on, maybe it was Fox and Friends or Good Morning America or something, where they're basically having a conversation, and he's providing you with the perspective you should have politically in terms of this merger taking place, and also the pageantry involved with the funeral service, like of all people. Lindsey Graham doesn't deserve any of this honor and principled sort of reaction of mourning, right? It just it's ridiculous to me, and you don't even know this person.
Real quick, I do want to, one thing that gets missed when we talk about the NDAA, the merger, the very fact that it even got, I think technically, to be fair, there is, I think, at least one or two more rounds of different things that they're going to vote on or whatever. So there is still some room, but I think it's generally each subsequent moving, it's becoming more and more set in stone, and I think it basically already is. Damn it, I had a whole fucking point. I totally forgot it. I got sidetracked with it. Where was I going?
Let me play this dumb bitch's video real quick.
Okay, go ahead and play it. Maybe it'll come back to me what I was going to say. Damn it.
Instead,
sorry. Muted her. Did I? Can you hear this?
No, I heard it.
In honor of Lindsay's commitment to stand with the Ukrainian people and to stand against authoritarianism, we're going to deploy the drone to the front lines so that it can be used to kill Russians. So rest in peace, Senator Lindsey Graham, a defender for freedom and liberty all around the world.
Yeah. So obviously, this was a ridiculous Laura Loomer. If you saw it, she made this post where she goes on the record claiming on Twitter with her exclusive video that I think she posted was over 2 minutes or something around there. And she says 2 days before he died, Senator Lindsey Graham spent his 71st birthday visiting the Skyfall UA drone facility in Ukraine. He took a photo with the P-1 Sun drone interceptor, and it was the last photo he took before he died. I was able to visit this same drone facility in Ukraine where I saw up close and in person the same P-1 Sun drones interceptors. Skyfall shared exclusive, never before seen footage with me that they filmed of Senator Graham during his visit, where they used a drone to wish him happy birthday. They told me they planned on sending the drone to the senator as a gift, but now that he is dead, Skyfall tells me the drone was deployed in Senator Graham's honor to the front lines to liquidate Russian assets. Skyfall has provided me with video evidence. So she watched snuff films basically when she was over there. Yeah, that's wonderful. I felt.
By the way, I remembered what my point was. Sorry, I did want to back up. I don't want to miss this. The very fact that we get sidetracked, and it's not actually a sidetrack. I guess in some way it's a bit of a distraction. But the merger here, it's got passed with the NDAA. Another thing that people are kind of missing with this NDAA, what this is the NDAA is I believe it's yearly, essentially passing that essentially Congress pushes it through. It's the loopholes that we don't have a standing military, because it's technically unconstitutional to have a standing military. So how they get around that is every year they vote on whether they want to have the military again for another year. And surprise, surprise, every year they vote on it. So it's effectively a standing military. So anyways, well, with that though, that is an obvious leverage point for Congress. And they have just recently, a lot of people have heard about the War Powers Resolution Act. This was this debate on who has the power to declare war. It was always, is it the president? Is it Congress? It's always been kind of conventionally understood, in the past that it was Congress, but then the executive tried to seize more power and find new ways to understand it. And so they ended up having this War Powers Act that was this, I guess you could say, sort of a compromise. It's still technically the way the letter of the law was technically this is still unconstitutional, but if you are going to carry out certain, belligerent acts, they will be conflicts and they'll be for only a given certain period of time and yada, 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 yada. Well, with that they have 60 days essentially to do whatever given conflict it is before they have to declare war. That is essentially the rule, the given understanding. It's still technically unconstitutional, but with that, the Iran war was always kind of fell prey to that. They've played all these different games, called it different things, Operation Epic Fury. Now it's just overseas whatevers, and it's like they've kind of changed the names of it. They've tried to distinguish between the blockade or between military actions, trying to find these arbitrary ways to break it up so that they can have separate 60 days, because it's been something like well over 120 at this point. But with that, the Congress actually passed a concurrent resolution, which is essentially a resolution that cannot be vetoed by the president. And so they have passed one of them. I believe they actually passed some other form of legislation too, another one more symbolic to this effect, but essentially they have already deemed this unconstitutional. The Iran war should be fucking done. The problem with that is though, then okay, cool. Now, how do you fucking do anything about it? It's like you need some sort of actually leverage. You need something. And the only leverage Congress actually has is the power of the purse. And in this very moment when they have, in the most obscene, overt sort of way, gone to the ridiculous degree of being unconstitutional, just bending over backwards absurd, in your face. And even despite that, Congress will not act and use any sort of leverage to actually force their hand. They still, in that moment, pass the NDAA as opposed to, and I'm not saying that the military wasn't going to get funded, but they could have easily dragged their feet, pulled all sorts of different political tricks to do something. Yeah. But no, just nothing.
It's proof positive to me that this is always political theater.
My point. I've been bringing this up as a perfect example of none of this political fucking gay shit. Vote this person, that person. It doesn't fucking matter.
Exactly.
What a more perfect example of that. It doesn't.
And this is why it's so frustrating that people label that conclusion as if it's even relatable to a black pill. It's no. Unfortunately, it's just the state of the world. This is reality, my friend. So if you want to have any sort of, consequential effect in terms of shifting the system into at least a better direction, a more positive direction that could lead us to a better place, you better at least be able to address the fact that they consistently utilize these political personalities to save face, to run damage control. Their only goal is public relations, for the general public to internalize and interpret exactly what these policies inevitably will obviously result in. And in terms of the result of the policy in general, they want to obviously control the outcome of how you psychologically interpret what will inevitably take place in the aftermath. Now, I will say, I saw another kind of and this is what makes me think that that, like Sam says, right? Basically polling is a form of black magic or whatever he says. It's like essentially some kind of, it's really just a sort of way in which you can influence the subconscious minds of the general public as well to kind of accept the outcome as it is coming to fruition based on the polling positions of things. It softens the blow at the very least, psychologically, I think, for people. And then also it even like primes them for potential outcomes of what they should expect, right? Expectations it will basically provide them with, which I find to be another way to soften the dystopian outcome, right? It's fascinating how this has been so well designed in terms of the sophisticated nature of this very, very deceptive, deliberate deceptive, propaganda. But the only reason I mention it is because I saw the Libertarian Institute published an article talking about only 1 in 3 Americans support the Iran war, and I thought, that's a little too many Americans. Yeah. But honestly, I'm not.
It's still like the least popular war, I believe, is the stat I keep hearing repeated.
But then I read the very beginning, right? And this was the reason that I mentioned that about the polls, like being witchcraft, sort of, right? It's so it's a Reuters poll. And again, this is, according to Kyle Ansalone's article, President Donald Trump's war against Iran has slipped to its lowest approval yet. The poll comes after the collapse of the Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, and ceasefire, which also obviously has more of an effect than it's interesting, this escalation, right, clearly. But the point is that this Reuters poll that was released on Tuesday, on today, found that, guess what? Just 33% of Americans, Jose, actually approve of the war against Iran, while over 60% disapprove of the conflict. This is Freemasonic theater. No, I'm tired of the 33% polls. Just leave me alone. Like, honestly, I don't even play gematria, but what are you doing to me? Like, when it comes down to the John Wayne Gacy connections, we'll talk about later after the break, I would imagine. It's 33 is just layered into the case. It's fascinating. He's even playing into it in his prison interviews, which is fascinating. He's telling one of the mothers of the victims, who's doing a lot of press, she needs to go take 33 Valium. And I'm like, oh my God. And he's laughing about the fact that he worked as a clown for an ice cream shop that only had 33 flavors. Right? It's just like the most ridiculous thing that you could ever see in your life with John Wayne Gacy and his 33 victims, allegedly, which obviously I don't believe. But anyway, with the foreign policy.
Would we catch Tyler Robinson in 33 hours? Isn't that what it was?
Yeah, brother, the 33-hour manhunt. Let's go, son. It's like, it's the dumbest thing that you could ever imagine, right? And I just think clearly what matters most is really the blood sacrifice in regard to the military conflict, right? Because that's just a reality of the consequential nature of a military conflict, but also how it affects us fiscally, financially. And I mean, what the real cost of the war within 120 days was quoted at being $103 billion,
It's basically already at a Holocaust in Ukraine. I think, a couple 100,000, right?
Exactly. And that's why I think, dude, when you have, so we're talking a 4-month timetable, right? A 4-month window of time, and the U.S. government has spent over $103 billion on the Iran war, which is larger than all but 3 countries' military budgets. That's just like, these are figures that only refer to direct war costs. It's the immediate budgetary costs directly tied to the conflict, including operations, personnel, and material or whatever, but it's not effectively acknowledging the real cost, honestly, in any sense of the word. So anyway, I think that it's important really that people understand that, and I think it was Dave DeCamp, right? He ran, I think it was at the top of antiwar.com about the Pentagon database, basically acknowledging that over 200 U.S. casualties, right, in the war. Since like only July 7th or something, right?
Yeah, well, to be clear, I always hear casualties, and I think deaths, that just means injuries as well. So that's injuries altogether throughout this, plus deaths. So I think that includes deaths.
It's
obviously awful. Yeah,
that it takes people to have to relate. Oh, the 200 Americans.
Yeah,
casualties. Oh, well, then now I care. Now I'm emotionally invested.
Which is basically what was hitting just Manob, just at the kids' school. So it's like,
right. But psychologically, how can you live with yourself? Like, honestly, you can't imagine, the toll, the ultimate toll and the cost of life in regard to how it affects the alternate side, the other side. It's like, what? It's just, again, this is something I've never been able to wrap my head around. But Trump abandoning the memorandum of understanding with Iran, I mean, it's clearly what they were claiming was to impose maximum pressure, right? And it was so ridiculous because I saw Netanyahu, basically, there's a report that Netanyahu was going to tell Trump Iran is working on a nuclear weapon again. That's what he was going to talk to him about today.
Yeah, there's reports he's coming to talk to him about. She's like, yeah, I'm sure he's 2 weeks away. Like, okay.
It's like, I feel like I've been here before.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing? And I just want to say one last thing on the Lindsey Graham front, because I saw, really he's not even worth going over the eulogies, which were kind of hilarious, and even seeing Sean Hannity out there just overtly, like praising and lavishing Lindsey Graham's love for Netanyahu and Israel with this overwhelming level of praise. It just goes to show, what their goals are, and what their true, underlying agenda that it truly is. And I think, and I really don't blame. I saw footage of Trump like falling asleep at the actual funeral service, and I'm like, yeah, I probably would as well, honestly, especially if I was his age. But now we're renaming the military base, right, in South Carolina on behalf of Lindsey Graham. And I think Trump even said in his eulogy, like, he goes off script. You can clearly tell he didn't write a damn word that he's reading. It's so funny. And he goes off script and he starts talking about how, well, he said, because he first says virtually everyone liked Lindsey. And then he instantly goes off script and
says, wait, that's not true.
Yeah.
Like, not even kidding. It really was one of those, like, whoa, everybody, come on.
It was so funny.
Who wrote this?
Dude, seriously. But he did say on a call to, I think it was a call, he made a call into Fox News for like a telephone interview. And he basically calls Lindsey Graham a war hawk, right? He legitimately said, I believe, that, but he did kind of finish that statement by saying that he started to turn around on his position in regard to the Iran conflict with Israel, of all things. And he said, but he was still very hawkish on Ukraine. But he was, and we saw that footage of him just before his death where he's talking about a potential peace proposal. I'm sure it wouldn't be in good faith. Obviously, it never is. But the point being is that's a strange video that I did watch. I remember. I think
on that. My theory with that is I do think some of the people who are like read in, like the inner circle guys, I actually think they've been given the essentially read in to be given the tack to kind of essentially be posturing more for Israel to be independent. You've been actually seeing this sort of language coming from Lindsey Graham types back when he was alive, like Tom Cotton types and other types like this, where they are kind of pushing this idea of allowing them to be like a partner with the United States as opposed to, being like an aid thing. And so a lot more this idea of like, well, let them, they can handle their own business type stuff, and like we're partners in the region type stuff. So there's been a lot more of that language going around, but it seems to be intentional. This is this aid to partnerships. This is this NDAA merger that we were just talking about. Like, it's that sort of stuff, which you are able to kind of play this perception game where you go, oh, we're independent partners. We're, hey, we're carrying I'm pulling my end, you're pulling your end, like, and it's opposed, but when we're actually like we're basically sharing an infrastructure, which is, let's be real, that's a leaky issue right there. That's going to get a whole lot of information swirling around.
But I will say though, because I know we'll take the break. I'm sorry. I just wanted
to super chat's about to read too. Somebody gave you a bunch of money.
Oh, hell yeah! Thank you, buddy. But yeah, we'll address that in just a second. I just wanted to, before I forget, on the drone front, because that whole strange, like Laura Loomer going to that same drone facility. Now I remember, and I forgot to mention this in either of the shows that I did during the week that it was kind of relevant, at the time, in terms of Lindsey Graham's death being a little more relevant, right? But the point is that there were all these allegations that basically Lindsey Graham, when he was visiting Ukraine, he was reassuring Zelensky. He's having this meeting. They're discussing, basically they were discussing strategy as well, how they were moving forward in certain ways militarily. But the point being is that basically he's shown this covert drone manufacturing facility in Kiev, right? And what they were claiming is that the facility no longer exists after it was directly struck by Russian MOD, basically with no warning. 6 missiles allegedly struck these 2 manufacturing facilities in the Kiev region, and so this was allegedly confirmed strikes on drone sites, which started a massive fire, and you can even see like some footage of it as well. But none of Russia's ballistic missiles were apparently shot down during this range of missile strikes, I guess, or whatever you want to say. But the point is that they were implying the implication was that Lindsey Graham potentially died in this airstrike, and they tried to save face and not actually, essentially, not to say that this was even deliberately done, other than maybe Lindsey Graham served his purpose. Maybe he was no longer as necessary on Capitol Hill as he once was. Not quite certain, but the point being is that he did seem to have been, and people were acting as if he was shifting his position. Now, clearly, I'm not running any sort of defense campaign for Lindsey Graham, God forbid. But I will say the video that I mentioned, and this is just before, 2 days before his death, right? He just after meeting with Zelensky, he gives this strange public statement.
I'm pleased to announce, as of about 30 minutes ago, we've reached agreement with the White House on a version of the Russian sanctions bill that they will support. It means it's going to become law. So when I get back to Washington, I'm going to go with Senator Blumenthal to the Republican and Democratic leader to see if we can find time to move this Russian sanctions package that would give tools to President Trump. I'm pleased to,
which is crazy, right? Like, it's honestly insane to even hear Lindsey Graham make a statement like that. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Honestly, and I'm not saying that, okay, yeah, he's targeted for assassination while he's on this trip, and this confirms it. No, it's clearly speculation. I just saw that theory being trotted out and kind of making the rounds in a viral sense. And honestly, who knows? What if they do want to conduct a high-level targeted assassination?
Oh, I think they probably did him. My biggest thing would be the timing. That's what everyone was pointing out, was that they literally couldn't be back in time. It just kind of makes sense. That thing did get, but the drone, from my understanding, is that building got bombed like the following day or something.
Right. So, which, how the hell is Laura Loomer making a trip? Did he go to a different drone manufacturing facility, or is she just trying to like run an alternative,
which to what I was talking about earlier. Let's say he did kill it, and let's say Russia did kill Lindsey Graham, and they're keeping it under wraps so as to not make it like, because let's be real. Well, because I don't think I highly doubt the Trump administration wants that sort of like push for like. I mean, I don't think they mind if it expands, but I don't think they want to like have a full offensive. But if this does happen, they keep it under wraps. There's probably certain characters who have an inkling, and they may understand like, oh shit, this happened, and this gives them some political. This gives them some wiggle room, essentially, I guess. Essentially, where they know they can push things a little bit further. So, like with Laura Loomer, like she can go in to interview Zelensky. She can kind of tweet a little bit more aggressively, pushing MAGA along, you know, trying to coax them into this. Because knowing the administration is likely to not counter signal her as hard, knowing that perhaps there's a certain senator who may have gotten killed by the supposed enemy, and knowing this could really push it. So they're kind of like taking their their peanuts of what they know they can get out of the situation, sort of thing. You know?
One of the recent Lego propaganda videos shows Lindsey Graham with a dead child, a dead girl, a little dead girl in his arms at his like mansion, and it's night. And it's like storming outside, and there's like a robed figure with a hood on in all black. You can't make out a face, nothing. And he comes into Lindsey Graham's mansion while he's basically holding this dead girl, this dead infant girl in his arms, and like looking at it, smiling. He's like enjoying his time with this dead child. And then all of a sudden he sees basically grim death show up on his front doorstep in this Iranian Lego propaganda video, and he like freaks out, jumps up, and then falls down and dies suddenly. And then they go on to imply in the video that Laura Loomer is fucking next, right? Yes. And I was like, oh my God. Like that is an extraordinary like level of not only just a direct threat, but like people are going to look at this as if it's just,
hey, there have been murmurs.
Propaganda.
I mean, that might begin over our skis because this is connecting a lot of dots here. But there's been all sorts of murmurs that Russia has been insisting with intel with Iran for all of this stuff. So maybe that's the connection. I don't know. It's getting a little too much over our skis there.
My bad.
Let's read this. Let's read this super chat, and then let's go to intermission. And then we'll come back, hang out with the patrons. I do want to talk to you a little bit about John Wayne Gacy. But we do have a super chat from Hollow Victories, $20. Appreciate the support. He says, appreciate you gentlemen for what you do. Thank you, Austin, for losing your sanity for the homies. Austin, have you ever been approached for the things you talk about? Then he said, also, what do you guys think about that NDAA 219 bill? Obviously, we talked a little bit about that already. So I guess the default then would be asking if Austin's ever been approached. The answer for me, I've never been approached. I think I had one person in my real life that recognized me from some podcast thing once. That was it.
Right. Now, I wonder, is he saying approached in the sense of to try and compromise you, or to some extent, or something?
By some or some suits or something. That's how I read it. But also, like, I guess just approached in any way.
It was really cool when I was at the Comedy Store the last time and I saw Sam's latest special. It was funny. Me and the wife were sitting at the bar down at the bar, right on basically right near the street outside the Comedy Store, and it was right after his set. We watched in the belly room, and so we were just kicking it outside, and I saw this girl with her husband, and she's like walking around to go to one of the comedy rooms, and I think she's probably going to the belly room as well, unless. I don't think it was the OR, but anyway, and she instantly actually recognized me because clearly there were a lot more people there to just see Sam's special that night. And so it was clearly just from like doing podcasts with Sam that she had the ability to recognize me, but that was kind of cool. You know, one of the only positive, sort of, moments of recognition from the show, but as far as like
to the side, showed you your phone, your internet search history.
No,
telling you guys never trust women; they're always feds.
Dude. No, honestly, if I haven't been approached, I will say like weird things happen. Like for example, the very day that Jake published the most recent interview we did, right on Son of Sam, I think published on Sunday. And, you know, you get an influx of followers or whatever, just from a new kind of, introduction point or whatever you want to say. And this profile on Instagram follows me, and it's got like a picture of like an older black woman. And I'm like, whatever, it doesn't matter. But the point being is that they like DM'd me instantly, and it felt like it was almost like it wasn't a real account. You know what I mean? And the DM was just like single word, hey. And then I got basically an alert that the account had changed its profile picture a few different times, maybe even the handle, I don't know. But this account calls me multiple times through Instagram, which, by the way, is a complete and total invasion of privacy. And it's kind of bullshit that if you have this social media app, that people don't even have to have your phone number and can actually directly call your phone when you're not even using the app. Like, that is insane, but clearly you just agree to it, to the new terms and updated terms of service, because you want to continue to utilize the social media platform. But anyway, the point being is that there are weird things like that, just weird DMs, that you get.
I had that guy I told you about. You remember that guy I told you about? That was probably the weirdest thing I had. The one that was like trying to send me. I've had people try to tell me like, oh, this inside info, like almost trying to get me to run with stories or something. And you're like, I've kind of heard them out and then just kind of like weirdly sketched out, or they got way too. I've had like at least once, the explicit example of that come to mind. I feel like it's happened at least one other time. I've gotten some weird emails. I know that the exchange I told you about, Austin, I got full on to like called the guy or whatever, because I was like, the fuck? I wanted to hear him out. But I've had other similar like just emails of weird shit like that, where you're like, you never know where it's gonna lead. And had some that gave me some weird vibes, like that one I just told you about. I do really feel like that was something. That was some sort of somebody trying to get someone to run with stories, because his big concern was, who do I know that's big? How do I get like? Which I guess would make sense for trying to make a story go live. But there were other things that were very much like, dude, what the fuck? So yeah, there's a lot of weird shit like that.
I have to tell you about. So this massive account basically hit me up asking if I should potentially, hey, are you interested in doing a 1v10 debate forum? Right. But like, they have like millions of followers, like, which I was just like, what in the hell is going on? Like,
wait, Austin, they hit you up for that?
Yes, dude.
Was it Jubilee?
No, it was, let me look at the guy's name. Hold on.
No. Like, have you not heard about those 10v1 things? That's what those like silly, like those Jubilee, they would actually probably be really good for you. like so far as getting your name out there.
Sure, it would be. But yeah, so Sean Kelly.
They're a lot grifty though. So like, I don't like, you could, there's always a possibility you could pull like like Dave Rubin. Like, remember the Dave Rubin one? That's the one Dave Rubin did a while ago. Was that 10v1 sort of thing. So shit, so that'd be cool.
And he seems like he seems to be acting in good faith. I obviously don't know him, but he reached out and basically asked, he said he'd love to have me on this 1v10 debate show. It's called Outnumbered, apparently. And it's, so he sent me a list of debates and prompts, basically, that, and to just let him know which one interests me and potentially get it on the schedule. But either way, I was like, it could be a very, a huge opportunity. And it's awesome that he would reach out. It's just, I'm not necessarily a debate guy. You know what I'm saying? Let's just put it that way. But I don't necessarily think that's exactly what this forum is restricted to, like them acting in bad faith and overwhelming you with too many different voices talking over each other. I don't think that's how this specific show operates. So it might actually be worthwhile and potentially following up on. And I told him I would definitely review it and reach back out and let him know. And I appreciate the opportunity. So who knows, it might come to fruition, and either way. Yeah.
Well, with that, let's we're about an hour 15. We're like a good ways after where we usually go to intermission. With that, we're gonna go to intermission. We'll come back and hang out with you beautiful people here in a moment. Hang out with the patrons. This is a portion of the show we're going into where we give the patrons the opportunity to come up as supporters of the show as a video call. They can come up just like me or Austin up right now. We will keep the phone lines open for the second half of the show, so you can call in if you like. But with that, Jacob, roll that beautiful bean footage. See you guys here in a few. Go take a leak, go to the bathroom, go eat, go do whatever you gotta do. We'll see you in a few. Roll that footage.
Edmund Kemper. When he was 15, he killed his grandparents. He was sent to a mental institution where he was given the best psychiatric care available. After he was cured, he was released, only to kill 8 more persons, including his own mother. Most of his 10 victims were college girls he picked up as hitchhikers. He can talk about their murder and mutilation with great detachment, almost as if someone else had done it.
I won't say that all my victims were Gloria Steinem types, but there were different factors involved in picking them up, talking with them. I talked with all of them before I killed them. Imagination was so much more satisfying than reality.
See, I have another problem. My father was in the 1st Special Service Force in World War II. They did a book and a movie called The Devil's Brigade. He was a combat sergeant in that group. And he volunteered for that as a single man. They would not take married men. That's how my parents met. She was working as a secretary in Helena, Montana, the capital city. He's a few miles out of town at an old, retired, closed-down cavalry fort for the U.S. Army that was reopened as a secret base for these guys to train out of at Fort William Henry Harrison, just outside of town. They got to know each other. They quite, it wasn't secretly, but it was very quietly got married, because if they'd have known he got married, he'd have been kicked out of the group. This is what was described as a suicide brigade. 5,000 men trained in all this devastation ways, right? He goes off to war, and he does some horrible things. He can't talk about those things.
Noted Australian, came over here, sexual assailed. We've got a litany of women who lure him into his van for sex, very charming and nice. But as soon as he was ready, he would turn him over and rape the man. He bit a girl so bad on the back it left a scar. He damn near bit another woman's nipple off. He jammed a broken beer bottle into another woman's, not into her hands, into a hip. He is a noted sexual sadist. Brutalized his wife, he brutalized people, he was a thief, he was a child molester, and the LAPD says, well, he's an asshole.
Well, Los Angeles police now believe that 2 young women whose bodies were found Saturday were strangled by someone who was imitating the so-called hillside strangler. In fact, they believe the murders were not otherwise related to the deaths of 11 other young women killed by the so-called hillside strangler since mid-October. They arrested in connection with the weekend's strike.
So, after 3 months of intensive investigation, the Los Angeles Police Department finally has booked a suspect in the Hillside Strangler case. It remains to be seen if Ned York actually is the strangler. Roy Neal, NBC News, Los Angeles.
Peter Mark Jones being held in Los Angeles. The police think he might be the Hillside Strangler. He was named by George Shamshak, who said he drove Jones's van while Jones committed 2 of the murders in the back. Here's Warren Wilson in Los Angeles.
Los Angeles police think they have cracked at least 2 of the so-called strangler murders. Meantime, police are still trying to solve 11 other hillside murders, which they now think may have been committed by several people. Warren Wilson, NBC News, Los Angeles.
What do you want the world to know about you?
The world has been fed many lies about me. I have read very few truths.
Did you kill 13 people?
It would be improper for me to comment on my LA convictions and on my pending case here in San Francisco.
Why?
Because of my appeals.
Are you appealing these because you say you're innocent? You didn't kill 13 people?
That is correct.
You didn't kill 13 people?
Again, it would be improper for me to comment in any regard.
They had to have a black suspect, period. If they had found out what we know now, that was Klan involvement in these cases, that was involvement in the United States government with knowledge of some of these things right now, if these things had been known back then, you probably would have had Civil War #2 being fought right in Atlanta, Georgia. They had to have a black man, so there's no other way about it. And I think what happened was that once my name entered into the FBI computer system, because at the time they had a system, this is classified, you're not supposed to know that I did, it's called Vortex. They had a system called Vortex. And once my name began to pop up with some past connections and things that I've done versus my father and all, I think the decision was made at the White House to prosecute Wayne Williams in this case, damn everybody else. Mr. Starr, Kenneth Starr, who was in charge of one of the investigations in this case, as well as then Vice President George Bush. I think they made a deliberate decision to prosecute me, as they say, come hell or high water. When I was going through school, when I started in college, I was approached to work for something called the JLT program, the Junior Officer Training Program, which is a minority recruiting program for the Central Intelligence Agency. I asked them so far as to take 2 trips to Camp Fair, Virginia, 1977, 1978. And these people wanted me to work with them because I already had a photonics background in photography, and they were having some problems at the time. Apparently, the United States, the UK, was involved in some action in Africa going against the government of Angola. So they needed some blacks to work for them. So in the process of considering me for that, my name was already on the computer. And I think after the good stop, you put 1 + 1 = 2 together, people got it. And I think that's exactly what happened. During the radio station era, we came to find out that while we were operating the radio station, I was also under surveillance by the FBI's NWJ875 program. The NSA had a program, which was also called Mental and Shamrock. You get those files that came out of the bank such years in 1975 and 76. I am a young black reporter who was mentioned in those files that we were under observation because of our association with the USC. Then the new
I'm praying for at least some data points, because otherwise it's the bug in Men in Black put on a Steve suit.
Howdy, we're back. That was quite the vibe. Another great
banger, dude. I enjoyed that.
Another great intermission from Jacob. I guess we'll be bringing on some patrons here in a moment. See who, if any of them want to come up over there in the back. We do have the phone line still open, 1-833-722-DEAD. But I guess before we go ahead and bring everyone up, we'll give them some time to figure out who wants to. Austin, you said there's a little bit of something you want to tell me about John Wayne Gacy delving a little bit into his cop connections, which, funny enough, before you dig into that, one of the underexplored avenues with Epstein is that he apparently had like a closet full of cop outfits and all sorts of, there are other reports of stuff along those lines of intimidation from law enforcement. So point being is, it's like, this is seems to be a tale as old as time. This isn't the first time these people have had connections. Hell, fucking
similar.
I think if I'm recalling correctly, I think also with Epstein, he had a DA guy, I believe, that he hired. And I think the guy that he hired was a guy that I believe was investigating him before, if I recall correctly. But either way, just kind of like this revolving door of whether it be, military intelligence, whatever. But John Wayne Gacy seems to have those similar hallmarks. You want to talk about that a little bit. So here you go, bud.
Yeah, it's honestly, as I mentioned before, like there's just some kind of more outlandish connections that I think probably don't get mentioned so often, just because of like, what can you really even make of them in a certain sense, and other than maybe being a signal to the initiates I would imagine that John Wayne Gacy was much more than just politically connected with mob ties. I think he legitimately had in terms of secret fraternal organizations of powerful influence and becoming an initiate within that framework, I think no one kind of fit the profile better than John Wayne Gacy. I mean, we already know, right, how he was approved, given Secret Service clearance to legitimately be hanging around Rosalind Carter for a pictured event where he's legitimately meeting her and this is at a parade that he himself was very much a big part of organizing in the first place, while a member of the JCs, right, which is always fascinating to me as far as like his even in prison, he was basically still running a chapter of the JCs. It was just the prison chapter, which I thought was interesting. And so he still maintained his connections throughout his prison sentence, which is strange. But he had, as I mentioned before, he was working for as a clown, right? He was clowning for Bresler's 33 Flavors Ice Cream. That was the name of this company, and it was a job where he basically held this job while he led a double life as this homosexual serial killer, right? But also abductor of younger children on behalf of the Delta Project Network. While he was, I think there were many different people who had keys to the PDM contractor Flophouse, which was the home that they mentioned so very often, right? Which is obviously where all the bodies were, at least most of the bodies were discovered, being buried under this home on Summerdale, I believe was the name of the street. But the point being is that it was throughout the time he held this job at the ice cream company.
By the way, real quick, Austin, just for funsies, I was curious. Apparently John Wayne Gacy was a member of the Freemasons, if you didn't know that.
There you go.
I just looked it up just because I was like, is he? And he is. He was. He joined it in 1969. Was very active. So there you go.
Yeah. So once again, we have Freemasonic theater playing out before our eyes, and there's a reason why I think that he went so far as to even go on the statement, or make a statement at one point where you have the mother of one of Gacy's victims, John Mowry, who basically says, she goes on record claiming, when you have a child taken out of your life, it is like a little piece is taken out of your heart. It's like she made a lot of different statements to the media during the time in which she was pushing for Gacy to be given, at least to be executed, right? Essentially is what she was ultimately hoping for and pushing for. And it's understandable. And Mowry, John Mowry, the victim, was, I believe, 19 at the time. He was a U.S. Marine and was studying to become an accountant. And he had allegedly gone to John Wayne Gacy's home for another job, right? Just like he procured so many of the other victims, which was by offering them a job to work for PDM contractors. And so understanding that the house on Summerdale, where all the bodies were found, many of the individuals in the serial killer syndicate that were, it was basically a flop house for this network. And so they had keys. Phil Paskey had keys, right? So you have these people who have keys to the property. And Gacy, when many of the victims were even killed, he wasn't even physically in the area, which I also find to be fascinating. And clearly he was I believe, given the Patsy cover-up treatment in terms of not overexposing the overarching network behind, right, the proverbial Patsy. But the point being is that he was very much impersonating a police officer during this course of time, right? What's interesting to me is that you could look at this as obviously another way that he could provide himself with an avenue to procure children, right? And I think it was obviously on behalf of the Delta Project. And then beyond that, the psychological effect of impersonating a police officer inherently sort of equips John Wayne Gacy with this false sense of authority and security on behalf of the victim, right? Because they would even trust him a little bit more. He would buy a new vehicle that would be the current model of the police cruisers each and every year, basically, and they would be blacked out as if it were an undercover cop in an undercover car. And then he would even mount spotlights and things of that nature to make it seem more legitimate. And he would even introduce himself to the victims as an undercover cop, which would basically allow them further to again provide them with that false sense of security, so they would then trust him more than they obviously should. Which is, yeah, as Bobo's saying in the chat, never trust a cop, right? Let's everybody just remind themselves, you're working at a disadvantage if you're trying to have an honest conversation with a police officer. That's just my personal opinion. But anyway, not to say that there isn't one person on the police force all throughout the domestic United States that doesn't mean well and have good intentions. You get my point, though. Is very much a big club, and we ain't in it, and that very very much plays out on the streets on a daily basis as well. A tribalist mentality. But the point being is that he plays into this Freemasonic theater even more so, because at one point he has a reaction to the mother of John Mowry, who's going on the record pushing for his execution, saying that you can never forget things of this nature, as I mentioned before, obviously. And she's being entirely honest when she says these things. And so Mowry takes the job at John Wayne Gacy's home and PDM Contractors and never returns. And so then you have an interview conducted with John Wayne Gacy where he basically expresses zero remorse whatsoever in terms of the death of John Mowry, and also the way in which the mother, Dolores Snyder, I believe is her name, was essentially acting, at the time. And so the point being is that in this interview, he essentially calls himself a victim, right, for being convicted of these crimes he didn't commit. And he effectively claims he only directly participated in, I believe, 2, but he has knowledge of 5, right, which is always interesting, right, as far as just the number clearly attributed to John Wayne Gacy is this 33 victims. But so in this interview, he basically really goes on to say that, and this is one of the when the mother basically goes on television, and so he reacts in this interview, and he says that one mother who goes on television all the time, who thinks I should be given 33 injections, I think she ought to take 33 Valiums and go lay down. If her Marine son was so great, then what the hell did he run away from home all the time? And then he says, and so anyway, the point being is that he's clearly leaning into this 33 number, which is fascinating. And even in one of the interviews, they directly address this. Now, if you notice, I believe it was not only Gacy, like there's a record of Gacy basically finding ironic humor in the fact that he performed as a clown for a business named after 33 flavors, as he was ultimately allegedly responsible for the deaths of 33 victims, which he claimed to be, a false number that was basically attributed to him when he didn't participate directly in any of this, or at least the vast majority of the deaths. And so, and obviously he portrayed different clown personalities. It wasn't just Pogo that everybody thinks it was. I think he even played Patches, right? Patch Adams from The Finders, right? In terms of the Robin Williams character, who is basically a clown that goes to this child care hospital, and he's trying to basically provide himself with an avenue to become at least at least have the opportunity, right, to clearly be around children.
Apparently there's the Patch Adams thing, apparently there's a lot darker shit to that story. I forget the specifics there, but I don't know if you recall that, like, there is some sinister shit that was going on there. Like, it's
I directly addressed it in my Finders episode, I remember, and I think we even talked about it in our series, right? Because actually we did, because I remember I brought up the fact that Marion Petty was personal friends with the original Patch Adams. And they were actual, Patch Adams was a member of the Finders, and I believe was a legitimate pedophile that was legitimate. You get the point. He was a prolific pedophile.
Yeah, not one of the illegitimate pedophiles.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, it's fascinating that this, again, happens to present itself in this specific criminal case, and especially with Gacy. And I think there's more process connections to this network as well, and especially in regard to some of the clowning connections in the area of Chicago at this time. But again, I'm really frustrated because I haven't been able. Not one of the videos that I presented tonight have I actually been able to hear on my end. So I have 2 other clips. It happens occasionally. It happened to me one time before where during the stream, for some reason, I couldn't actually hear the audio whenever I played a clip. But still, I'll use the captions and hopefully it won't be too awkward. But I'll at least play one video before we get out of here, because again, they actually suggest, not only does a victim who escaped John Wayne Gacy go on the record claiming that, yes, he did in fact present himself as an undercover cop, and also that he had to go to church, and that's the reason that he even let him leave after he basically raped him in the back room. It was fascinating stuff, but I didn't really buy this story, if I'm being honest, coming from this alleged victim that escaped the grasp of John Wayne Gacy. It didn't really fit. Personally, it seemed like maybe there's more to this individual alleged victim than we're meant to believe, and this victim is now providing us with the official version of events. That could potentially be a possibility. It's worth at least considering. And but anyway, if you didn't know, by the way, and there's John Wayne Gacy allegedly. This is according to one of the investigators. He would read Bible verses and scripture to his victims as they slowly died after being tortured to death, and then he would proceed to engage in necrophilia as he raped their dead corpses. So that is what one of the investigators said on an Inside Edition interview that I was watching just before his execution. I feel like so much of what they were trying to provide was justification in the subconscious minds of the general public to push for this to happen, so they could easily cover up this entire network, easy, tie the bow on and forget about it. And it's now in the annals of history. We can reference it anytime we want to have a new Netflix series that completely mischaracterizes and obviously restructures in a real way. It always seems to reinforce the official version of events as well, and the official narrative of things. But anyway, what I found crazy, and clearly all of this to some degree or another will be included in my episode one day, whenever it does finally get published and I finally am allowed to release it, because that's how it feels. Is like I'm basically imprisoned by this specific case, is almost how it feels. But it's mainly because, dude, the tentacles of this octopus are just absurd. It's one of the most absurd, overwhelming criminal enterprises that I think I've ever been introduced to. And to have so many direct connections to like satanic serial killers. It's like, my God, I had no real concept of basically the Ripper crew before I got into this case, and not realizing that there is sort of these profound connections to a serial killer, a satanic serial killer syndicate, right? And I think, again, whenever you realize that Robin Gecht, who's the main individual who's running the Ripper crew, is legitimately on basically receiving paychecks from PDM contractors, right? A company owned by John Wayne Gacy and was employed by PDM at the very same time. So the Ripper crew was a satanic cult, which was active in Chicago, right? And basically it was throughout the year 1981 to 1982, which is directly like given the primary focus. And essentially this is when basically you have, and it's interesting because it's like there's a crucial description of these attackers in October of 82 by a survivor, right, who was attacked. And investigators were basically attempting to link the potential perpetrators to this attack, and based on the description given by, I believe the name of the victim was Beverly Washington. And the testimony basically allowed the investigators to connect the vehicle, this red van, to the group's leader, which was Robin Gecht, and he was. It led to his arrest directly and subsequent, apprehension of a few other associates that were a part of this Ripper crew. Edward Spritzer and brothers, basically Andrew and Thomas. I believe their last name was Cocorales or something. It was a strange name, but they were all interrogated throughout the investigation process, and the members of this Ripper crew network confessed to over 17 murders that involved beheading the victims, dismemberment of the bodies, and all within the concept of cannibalistic rituals, with basically the forensic evidence throughout the investigation process provided the victim autopsies and corroborated all these facts in terms of the cannibalistic rituals involved in the beheadings process and all of this. They were even basically surgically removing the breasts of their victims as well, like some of the women that they were abusing and torturing to death. That was also a part of their process. And so anyway, it turns out that basically the Ripper crew directly connects to John Wayne Gacy, because clearly Robin Gecht is an employee at PDM Contractors, and this employment is basically the direct connection between Gecht and Gacy, and also involves directly Philip Paskey and John David Norman, because obviously the nexus is the PDM Contractor enterprise in regard to the Delta Project being ran through Phil Paskey on the outside at this time, and a nearby a property owned by John David Norman as well. And they were all involved in producing snuff films in regard to this. It's beyond a shadow of a doubt, in my opinion, just from witnessing the evidence personally. And so you have clearly, a broader network of sex trafficking, abuse, snuff films, torturous methods, I would think, being recorded as well, just for the overall scope of the enterprise. But again, it's like when you have all of these additional layers to the 33 Freemasonic connection, you are already reinforcing the concept that, yes, John Wayne Gacy was an overt member of the Freemasonic order. And let alone the fact that they found a ridiculous number of blackmail files on local individuals and political personalities that were at Gacy's property, right? And I always thought that was interesting, because during Gacy's arrest, most of the evidence, especially the detailed description of the evidence that was apparently, that basically the evidence seized from the property whenever the raid was conducted, the household inventory was never made public, right? It basically took the lawyers filing in I think it was the Cook County Courthouse, and effectively they were provided with a legal document that then they were allowed to publicize. And this was Gacy basically having this set of blackmail files on professional athletes, politicians, celebrities, and none of those files were ever officially entered into evidence. And so the fact that it took the basically these lawyers, and this is like 4 decades after the case, right? It's just fascinating to see that what they discovered in the household inventory were film cameras, photo cameras, 8mm editing deck, and viewing screen. That's child pornography, man. They were distributing and producing snuff films and child pornography. What was the film 8mm, man? We talked about that was the loophole. You could have an undeveloped strip of 8mm film, and you could distribute it basically legally, unbeknownst to the authorities, through a mailing service, which is just, what do you even do at that point when you realize that honestly, the pedophile occupied government should never shock any of us at this point in regard to the level of entrenched, sophisticated, systemic, networking that they're capable of in this context.
I did want to re-emphasize something about Gacy real quick. One thing that doesn't really, I think, get honed in enough. We always talk about Gacy, and people always, gay serial killer. That's what comes to mind. But keep in mind, we made the connection here to like snuff films and pedophilia, and people like they've almost done a successful trick for I think where most people are like, what? Like it almost doesn't compute. Like, but if you look at the actual victims, they were like, yes. I mean, I don't think we weren't looking at like 8 to like 12 year range, but like there were like 14, 15, 16-year-olds, I believe, if I'm recalling correctly. I know there was at least one 15-year-old I remember, but I think there was actually, it was mostly like in that like 15 to 20 range. So like that was what he was going for. So it wasn't, people seem to have this idea that he was like going after like early 20s men, and that was like kind of exclusively it. No, it was kind of,
it was like 14 to 21 years old, basically. Yeah,
exactly.
That was basically the range of age. And I think the youngest was, guess what? His very first victim, the stepbrother of Paul Bonacci, Timothy McCoy. Get the fuck out of here. Like, honestly, I'm like, how can you now? And again, I'm not lecturing anyone. This is basically my frustration, bubbling to the surface in terms of how the hell, other than by design and facilitating an illegitimate cover-up, but obviously in a very efficient way, that the vast majority of people in the general public are just fully buying the official version of events, the official narrative, and this concept of serial killers in general, right? Which again, as a phenomena, I am very much altogether questioning at this point. I don't believe in it's the same concept of the satanic panic to me, right? This is it's a cover-up tool, right? That is legitimately what it has become, right? Is a way in which you can efficiently delegitimize and discredit anyone who is actually poking holes objectively into that official narrative, and realizing that absolutely not was it only one sole perpetrator that committed 33 lone murders and this psychotic mind that acted alone. It's clearly a cartoonish false narrative. And I think realizing that John Wayne Gacy, and I mentioned to you, I think when you called me earlier, just the point in which I thought, mind control is a legitimate possibility, as far as, at the very least, removing his ability to engage in impulse control, and even possibly losing just any sort of grasp on moral inhibition whatsoever, right? And I think this is all could be pharmaceutically induced. And so to understand, John Wayne Gacy, basically, he made all of these claims on the record where he's taking large amounts of Valium. And there's one specific video. It might be a little too long to play, honestly, for tonight, but it'll definitely be in my solo project. And he goes on the record and he's basically making the statement as well personally about the level of Valium that he was personally, his incredible drug habit is basically what it is. And it was like part 5 in the CBS News video, the jailhouse interviews that he was participating in, where he reveals this incredible drug habit. And it was specifically tons of Valium that he would swallow, basically take by mouth. And he personally claims this led to temporary amnesia during his alleged confession. Now, this is fascinating, dude, because I thought, okay, consider the possibility of pharmaceutical-induced mind control, like I said before, or at the very least, this temporary absence of the internal psychological restraint, that typically provides the impulse control. And so you have this lack of moral inhibition that is basically brought about by the possible malevolent use of pharmaceutical agents. And this is when I thought, okay, we need to take this moment of him basically going on the record in the CBS interviews. He says, this helps basically explain his erratic behavior and alleged memory lapses whenever even particularly regarding his initial confessions. So again, I'm thinking, so the only time that John Wayne Gacy actually confessed to all 33 murders was when he was under the influence of, and also he goes on the record claiming that he had taken 3.5 hours of truth serum, sodium amytal. He says this in the interviews. Now, what's interesting to me is that basically, and this was in 92, right? And don't get me wrong, like people need to understand how really psychologically threatening benzos actually are, and Valium is specifically Xanax, Klonopin, whatever you want to point out. I personally, as a young dumb retard, just engaging in drug culture, I kind of always played that game of drinking on pharmaceuticals, and trying to find the perfect recipe for the blackout.
Experiences may vary. As me and you were talking earlier, and it's like I was more of an opiate guy. Sounds like you were more of a benzos kind of guy. And yes, an opiate guy, like you mix alcohol, you're more likely like throw up. Maybe it'll heighten the feeling. Maybe you'll get more itchy, a little clammy. But benzos, say goodbye to your memory and your night. So
and moral inhibition as well, and also like you almost become sociopathic, but yet also over emotional at times in your reaction. And it's again this inability to engage in this impulse control. And I think that realizing in this 1992 exclusive set of interviews with John Wayne Gacy, I think it was Walter Jacobson from CBS conducted the actual interviews. But Gacy claims, and he goes on the record stating that he took Valium to cope with long work days and suggested that it had potentially contributed to his inability to recall events throughout this time. So he also alleged that he had taken this 3.5 hour, basically the sodium amytal for up to 3.5 hours of this truth serum to provide or to prove that he had no knowledge of the crimes. And this is basically, there's no real evidence on the record that shows that he was administered sodium amytal. So everyone essentially just kind of dismisses this for its lack of evidence in terms of the allegation, right? But before he was arrested, Gacy reportedly confessed to his attorney while entirely under the influence of tons of Valium. That's what the claim is. And only to wake up the next day with absolutely no memory of even having the conversation, leading to theories that would basically arise that the drug caused his temporary amnesia. And so this legitimately was happening during the time of arrest, where people were questioning, right, whether this was a legitimate confession. And especially because of his strange connections politically, things of that nature, right? People were starting to wonder, like, and also he had 5 children, and it was kind of funny, like, it's not funny, but the way he would describe how he would even like, it was almost as if he had like a moral, he had like this moral struggle, grappling with how he would punish his children. And so he said he couldn't even basically force himself to use the belt on his children to punish them, right? That sort of thing. And I thought, just the way the guy was. Now, I'm not at all defending John Wayne Gacy. Don't get me wrong whatsoever. But I do think there's so much more to the story. And I also think that he definitely was only participating in a very, small minority of the overall 33 victims. But either way, the point that I'm really trying to get at is basically that he goes on the record claiming that he has no memory whatsoever of the original confessions, and also that he used these claims as a part of his defense. And you have basically this was attempting to portray himself as a victim of circumstance, or even the medication-induced confusion and memory loss, rather than a calculated serial killer capable of such heinous crimes. And so now none of this matters, because inevitably he's convicted of all 33 counts of murder and executed by lethal injection in 1994. So it's, the only point that I would like to point out, obviously, and the reason why I thought it necessary and worthwhile in mentioning is just that I legitimately believe benzos and Valium is definitely a legitimate pharmaceutical agent that could easily be relied upon to help potentially remove that moral inhibition that I mentioned before. And who knows what you could become capable of if you're given the right formula and sort of conditioned in the right way.
Well, I was telling you, my wife's epileptic, and so I've had quite a bit of experience with Valium when it comes to her. pretty common for post-seizure to use it. Hell, even some of the rougher times where she's been hospitalized, they would even give it Valium on a drip. Very much memory, in and out, very much tired. So you could totally see you get into these in-between, like, somnambulous states, I believe is what they call it, like these, like, kind of in-between waking and sleeping. And so you end up in this kind of, this odd space so far as where your consciousness resides, while still being able to do things. So it is it's a unique place to be, and obviously this could be a chemist's dream. If someone was trying to manipulate certain behaviors, it would be pretty easy, I think, to do so with something like Valium. But with that, Austin, we're damn near in 2 hours. I got a couple super chats I figured we could go through, but other than that, I think we're basically good. I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to put, like put a little bit on the end there or something before we go through super chats.
Honestly,
put a bow on it, but kind of hit it all.
Yeah, we've really discussed most of this is. There's a reason I've been working on this case for so long. You know what I mean? It's like as soon as it does finally, I feel like I get to a let's just say a conclusion in terms of the overall, because I do think storytelling is taken for granted these days. I just think that's really the most important aspect of how you provide the details, especially in a credible sense, where it's convincing enough for people to really grab it and run with it and fundamentally internalize it to where, they will no longer fall victim to these false frameworks and these, just in terms of the deliberate deception of lack of context or whatever the case may be, in terms of these official narratives and mainstream version of events. So that was the main goal, and I just kind of wanted to briefly touch on a couple of things I found to be absolutely absurd. And I pulled videos that I really wanted to play, but honestly, it's not worth it, and especially since I can't even hear anything, it would just frustrate me. So I'll just probably put these clips in my episode at some point, and so keep your eyes peeled for that. But yeah, I'm down to do the super chats and then get out of here. Honestly, I might send you the Lego video though for the outro, so you can do it, because I would rather hear it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I address these super chats. Go ahead and send that to me, and then I'll bring it up on the outro. But yeah, we got Hello Victories following up. The guy sent us a big super chat a moment ago. Kind of following up on your commentary on the 10v1. He said Austin and Jubilee would be insane, Jose. Now I did look, I searched, you said outnumbered. I couldn't find anything, just quick Google searches on outnumbered.
Yeah, dude,
so
like a million fucking subs on YouTube, honestly.
Oh
yeah,
shit,
yeah.
so you did find it, and it has okay,
Yeah.
well, I was gonna say maybe it's not worth your time, because I thought it was like Jubilee, and then couldn't find it. Well, okay, well if it does, you should probably do that. Although I should probably start being maybe like, if you were to do that, I should probably start fucking with you more on the show, and like just maybe start being a more devil's advocate. No, for real, to like throw you off, because I mean the whole idea is you're gonna have like 10 people that are being like confrontational to you at the same time. But we also another 5 chats from Kitty Valentine's. Is awesome research into the serial killer topic. Austin, have you ever looked into the Fox Hollow Farm murders? Herb followed similar MO as Gacy and Dahmer. That sounds vaguely familiar. Does that does that ring a bell for you, Austin? Or
Herb
no?
Baumeister. Yeah, I've never actually been aware of this property. Oh yeah, no, I have. Oh my God, yes. This actually, I bookmarked some things and I found some articles that we can discuss it in a future date, because
it'd be a good one.
My mom actually called me, and she of all people had watched a documentary. I think there was a documentary that was made about the Fox Hollow murders not too long ago, and maybe it was on, I don't know where.
Is that the DuPont farm? Someone here is saying the DuPont farm. Is that the DuPont thing?
Well, I mean, it looks like to me. Yeah, I feel like this is a fascinating, because honestly, there's so much to this when I was looking through the actual details of the case, because there's like, they're talking about fragments, like 10,000 human fragments recovered from the property or something, and in an attempt to identify victims and things of that nature. But yeah, it's a real again, it's another one of those cases that kind of provide you with a never-ending rabbit hole, right? It's one of those, and it feels like much more of a network in regard to this case specifically, and not necessarily as oversimplified as the official narrative became. But still, I remember that basically this individual, Herb Baumeister, I don't know the inevitable result of the investigation, if I remember correctly. I can't remember exactly how it concluded, but let me see if I can find something.
You know what?
Now.
This is ringing a bell now. The more that we're talking about, I remember the name Baumeister. I remember this was in Program to Kill, wasn't it? It was one of the different examples, I believe.
I think so.
Yeah.
It's like I specifically focus and prioritize portions of these books, and then never go back and reread through the entire a book in itself. I need to reread.
By the way, Jacob is saying Herb killed himself, so there's that one.
Okay, there you go. There's the conclusion. Yeah, he died by suicide after a warrant was issued for his arrest. So, yeah, and so that makes a lot more sense that they would have a patsy who died by allegedly killing himself after the warrant was issued. But so 12 basically, yeah, he's under suspicion essentially for these Interstate 70 like 12 murders, I think it was specifically. But either way, yeah, I'll have to do a deeper dive, because I definitely, whenever my mom called me, I instantly looked it up. I started bookmarking things and sending myself articles and stuff. So
be something fun to talk about next week. Yeah, for sure. But with that, Austin, where can people find you at? We'll be back next week. We'll do another one of these, and looking forward to doing that. It'll be a good time.
I'm going to send you that video. Oh, I sent it to you on X, I think, just now.
Oh, it's like, I'm going to bring it up.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Oh, wait, hold on. I got you. Sorry. I can't multitask very well, to be honest. But anyway, so I have a one-track mind. Either way, you guys already know, support me at the Underclass Podcast. Definitely the best place to I would say financially support me is the Patreon, and at least you'll get the paywall show, whatever this is, with me and Sam and Brad. And yeah, I thought, honestly, man, when I was researching a little bit more into the foreign policy, I saw just this angle in regard to this kind of foreign aid in regard to U.S. troops and Israeli troops, military troops showing up in Venezuela following these earthquakes. And in reality, they're actually controlling the flow of oil outside of the country. And so it just like, I feel like we are witnessing the strategic timing. And we mentioned as much in terms of whenever Venezuela conflict really kind of was given the green light and you had Maduro overthrown and things of that nature. It felt as if it was perfectly in time with the Middle Eastern conflict that would affect the oil industry. And so you would need some sort of self-serving, strategic, right, at the very least, softening in terms of the overall consequences. But yeah, there's a lot more to it, and I encourage people. There's an article. It's called "Vultures Circling the Rubble: U.S. Troops and Businesses Descend on Venezuela," and it just goes to show the techniques and deceitful tactics of the economic hitman is always just it's always basically going to be a viable tool moving forward. And so you can kind of see that playbook as it reveals itself, and you'll be able, with the pattern recognition in tow, not fall into the camp of ever supporting some sort of foreign conflict such as this. But goes to show the confessions of an economic hitman ring true to this very day. So that's the only point I wanted to make. And beyond that, I mean, it's very clear that they are attempting to control its damage control in terms of how this conflict continues to escalate and how the individuals in the general public in the West are intended to react to it. And I should have honestly grabbed that Laura Loomer video, the one where Lindsey Graham dies. Let me see if I can find that one. But Honestly, we can go though if you want to. But nothing but love, everybody. You know this. I'll try and do another solo stream soon. I have definitely have a lot coming up. I have another trip. I'm going to go to Orlando. I think obviously not this week, but next week. And I got to see you. Obviously, hopefully we can do something whenever I come out. Yeah, but either way, I have a lot going on. I'm attempting to balance it all and hopefully come out the other end with some sort of productive solo project in the next few weeks. So, but beyond that, it's always love on my end, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.
Hell yeah. For those who want to support what I'm doing, leave a like, share, subscribe, comment, leave a 5-star review on iTunes and Spotify. You can find the show on YouTube, Rumble, all the major audio podcatchers, and Twitter as well. On Twitter, that's at Tower Gang Jose. Everywhere else, it's just the No Way Jose podcast. And if you want to support the show the best way you can do that with money over at patreon.com/NoWayJose2020. The lowest level, you get access, at the lowest level being $2, you get access to a whole host of perks. Keep about 1 to 2 behind the paywall, or do about 1 to 2 behind the paywall every week. Keep about 3 to 4 behind the paywall at any given time. Give you guys access to the ad-free RSS feed, the Telegram, and the pre-show, the post-show, and video calls. And this show right here, Are You Dead, which goes out on Tuesdays at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. I'll also give a big shout-out. The highest level of my Patreon is a big thank you for their support. On my previous Ghost and Tower Gang, at Leonard Toad, also at Brigade D's, at ZFRCK, at _Invazil, Tim Tull, at John Klebold. Big fan of the show, Torn May, at Wayne Tacos, One Undercover for Kids, No Free Lunch, Jack, Mark Vestibule, Jacob Winter Guy, the Biblical Eric Podcast, and John Black, you beautiful bastard. And with that,
one more thing. One more thing.
All right, here we go.
I'm sorry.
What's the one more thing?
Take that one away and let me show you one thing. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's not long. I swear. It's not actually long. But it's worth seeing. And again, this is at least RT did it as well, but they also kind of had like an underneath the actual footage of Lindsey Graham being taken to the hospital, which we might play that one as well. Who knows? But this is specifically the Laura Loomer Lindsey Graham death video.
So we're playing this one as the outro now.
I mean, I guess we could, but oh, now I'm worried I won't be.
Or are we doing 20 minutes of Lego Iran videos? What are we doing?
The other one is longer, but I think it's more of a banger. This one is just like extraordinary. What the hell is this? So let's just watch it real quick and then do the outro Lego video. It'll be a double dose of Lego propaganda. I'm sorry, but it's worth it. I swear it's worth it. And if I can't hear this, I'm going to be so pissed. I can't hear it. Right? That's crazy. And so I had to share that with you because after I described it, I felt like it was worthwhile and showing everyone. But anyway.
I think some of these Lego things are. I did watch a little thing on this a while ago. They're like sort of unofficial through the Iranian state. So I don't know. There could be something to that. But with that, let's play this outro. We'll see you guys in the next one. Love you all. Bye-bye.
Hey, pedal done. Your empire is done. Pedal done. You started the war. You thought you would win. Now look at the mess that your country is in. Look at it. Your general's crying, your plan was a bust. The promises made are now turning to dust. Marco Rubio was sweating, he's grilled on the floor. They asked for the billions you wasted on war. You lied from day one, you keep capping a lot. But look at the straight, we got it on lock. Lockdown. You're begging for mercy, you're begging for peace, while telling your media Iran wants to cease. You sure? You're losing the straight, you're losing the state, and now the whole public is drowning in hate. You told stop talking about Epstein. Now listen to the crowd.
Epstein, Epstein, Epstein.
Louder!
Epstein, Epstein, Epstein.
Don't stop talking about
Epstein, Epstein, Epstein.
louder!
Epstein, Epstein, Epstein.
You lied about Iran, said Navy is gone. You promised regime change from darkness to dawn. Keep dreaming, your beautiful B2s were flying so high, still shaking inside. You're about to cry. You stood on the stage, looking completely detached, saying, I don't care about voters, it's cash. Did he really say that? Yeah, he did. You care about ballrooms, luxury suites, while American families starve on the streets. The peaking economy's dead, but you worry about Israel instead. The corruption is deep, AIPAC's buying the state. Every politician's got a price on their plate. You're all just puppets dancing for funds, while Iran is standing and holding the guns. You're losing the straight, you're losing the state, and now the whole public is drowning in hate. You told stop talking about Epstein. Now listen to the crowd.
Epstein, Epstein, Epstein.
Louder!
Epstein, Epstein, Epstein.
Don't stop talking about
Epstein, Epstein, Epstein.
louder!
Epstein, Epstein, Epstein.
You called yourself a king, but you're just a BJ queen. The biggest disaster the White House has seen. Your empire is done, 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 done. Pedal, done, 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 done.
Epstein, Epstein, Epstein.
The war is lost.
Epstein.
You go fix your boss.